Hi, and welcome to this Micrographics webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today's topic is Autodesk Vault, Managing Data and Folder Structures on the Vault. My name is Irshad Hanif. I'm an application engineer with Micrographics, and I will be walking you through this topic and helping you understand the basic ideas in what we want to talk about today. Okay, so let's discuss our agenda for the day. We're going to discuss a couple of things. We're going to start off by doing a both basic and professional overview. Of course, there is one more product there called Vault Workgroup, and we're going to discuss, basically do a quick comparison between the three. So if you don't have any Vault product, you'll be able to see exactly what will be best suited for you. We're going to discuss setting up the local workspace and project file. Then we're going to move on to how does Vault handle my libraries and content center, and what can and what can't I do. Okay, we're going to take a look at a few best practices for folder structures in the Project Explorer, and then we're going to look at how the best practice for storing your drawing templates and styles, right? And then we're going to discuss the last three ideas, which is what it does with your CAD data, your non-CAD data, and how exactly do you go about moving your data around on the Vault, right? So just to note on that last point, Vault basically handles all your data, so you don't have to worry too much about links. It will relink itself according to the Vault project file. Right? So let's get straight into it, and we will go on to the next slide. If I can just get my next slide up here. All right. So why we need product data management? So in a design company or in a design house, you will have different departments, namely procurement. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Namely procurement, manufacturing, maybe a quality department, maybe a supplier side that you need to interact with and collaborate. And of course, that all revolves around with the design engineering department. Okay. You'll see that in this little diagram that I've got in the background, okay, we've got a lot of interaction happening between all the different systems and all the different participants in that environment, okay? And they, of course, need to exchange data, and at each and every stage, data needs to be protected to a certain degree. So for example, your design house, your design engineering down here will probably want to interact with the client, but he doesn't want to share everything. Similarly, he want accounts or procurement will need to purchase things, but they don't need to change any data that the design house has made. So you'll find that managing this using existing solutions, like maybe just your basic Windows shared folder, can be very problematic, which is why we have Vault as a product. Right. So let's take a look at Autodesk Vault Basic and Professional about the products. Vault is all about access to data, and like we just discussed, that different departments need to interact, and you can choose one of three products. Okay, three products being Vault Basic, Vault Workgroup, and Vault Professional. Okay, now with these three different products, Vault Basic being the simplest and the most basic of the form, right? It is included free with any Autodesk product that you see listed here, right? So if you have an AutoCAD license or you have an Inventor license, you'll find that on your product or account page, you will have access to Vault Basic and you can start using it. But note, it does not include all the features. It mainly allows you just to check in and check out files and store it on a server somewhere such that you can perform a concurrent design. Right? So what is meant by concurrent design? It means a team of designers and draftsmen can work on CAD data, like assemblies and parts and drawings, without the worry of having overwriting each other's work. So that's always a worry if you're working with a normal shared folder on Windows, for example. But with Vault Basic, it will manage that data for you. Right? Sorry, but with Vault Basic, it will manage that data for you. With Vault Workgroup and Vault Professional, there are tiers where it adds in slightly more functionality with each tier. you'll find that there's add-ins for Vault in all of the listed software here. So for um, Alias Automotive, Alias Design, Moldflow, all of these products. But I'm guessing if you're watching this webinar, the main products you'll be focusing on will be AutoCAD and Inventor, maybe Revit or 3ds Max. All right. You'll also find that it integrates add-ins with Office products, as well as you can add in PDF files. But there's a line here, I've separated them because Vault treats Office data like Word and PowerPoints and etc. and PDFs differently from the way it treats CAD data. So let's do a quick comparison between all three of these products. Right? If you see the two tables on the on the right, you will find that you have data management fundamentals. This is supported by all three of the products regardless, right? And that's the basic functionality of these three, which means Vault Basic, Vault Workgroup, and Vault Professional, all of them have access to at least these features, which means I'm just going to go over a couple of them, right? Mainly the important ones. One we said was concurrent design. The other was Microsoft Office integration. The other one we looking at was automated data organization, fast data searching, to filter out iProperties effectively and filter out what's checked in, what's being used. Seamless CAD integration, where you check in stuff directly from the application, and data reuse. Right? Data reuse is simply being able to have a design on your Vault and being able to copy it without having to go through the extra hoops of using a file export or a file pack and go sort of workflow, right? You can simply use the copy design feature and it will allow you to rename and reuse designs that you already have in the Vault. Down here, we have the advanced data management, and you'll see that Vault Basic has none of the advanced features. So what are the advanced features? If you look at the Vault Workgroup and Vault Professional rows, you'll find that they are fairly similar, although Vault Professional has extra steps for SharePoint integration and BOM management. Right? So let's take a look at these extra features that that you might want in your company. Extra features include revision control, reporting. You will have project life cycles. So if I highlight project life cycles down here, that's a big one. That allows you to manage your data according to what stage in the development process it is. So for example, when you design something and you check it in initially, it's going to be work in progress. At a certain point, it's going to be reviewed by someone. And after that, once it gets reviewed, it gets released to manufacturing. Once it's released to manufacturing, there are different permissions attached to it, which means it's locked. Nobody can edit it, nobody can change it, and you can make sense of what other people see on the other end. So at each of those stages, namely work in progress, for review, released, or perhaps obsolete, right? You can customize each of those stages to define who gets access to what, how the process works, what can be changed, what can't, who gets access to approve. You can define whether your designs will be revised accordingly. So when it goes through that life cycle, it gets automatically bumped up to a revision number. So going from version 1.1 to 1.2. You can control a whole host of things using Vault Professional or Vault Workgroup. Okay, I'm just going to move on to my next slide. Right. Lastly, another solution we have is newly introduced as of a few years ago, the Vault mobile app. So this allows, if you have any Vault system implemented and you have any Android or iOS device, people on the go, people down in the factory, or maybe management want to see things as they progress on the go and the real-time states of your designs, you have the Vault mobile app, right? So it allows you to stay up to date with your projects. Collaboration is a big thing. You're able to mark up and put little comments from your Vault. And that, like I said, is available on both platforms. Right? Let's take a look at how Vault works. Vault works by having what's known as the client and server relation. So on your server, you'll have a software called Vault Server. Okay, and on your client machines, you'll have Vault client installations. They will interact by a web server or a local server, and they will consist of two parts that's stored on the server, namely your database and your file store. Okay. So what is your database and your file store? Your database is basically a list of transactions, so to speak, recording what was checked out, when it was checked out, how long it was worked on, when it was checked in, what revision it's on, where it was stated, who worked on it, etc., etc. It records basically everything regarding the history and the properties of your data. The file store refers to the data itself. So that's your actual CAD data, your PDFs, your designs, your IPTs, your IAMs, your DWGs, all of that refers to the files. Okay. You're probably wondering at this stage, okay, that's great. How does it work? How does it actually get stuff onto the vault? If I'm working in Inventor, what exactly will change? So I'm going to use Inventor as an example, but it's going to be pretty much fairly similar for any other CAD program like AutoCAD. But Inventor is a good example because it makes use of a project file. So when you're working locally, you will know that you have to create an IPJ file, right? Your Inventor project file. That stores information about where the location is sitting, and in that folder that you set as your project file, it will contain all the links and parts, all the links and all the information that relates to your designs. So without Vault, you can work on a local project file, but with Vault, what it will do is it will take that project file and mirror it across to the Vault, and it can write back and forth between a local workspace. So in short, Vault works by working on a local space and then mirroring that local space onto the Vault each time you want to check in and check out data. Okay, hopefully that graphic is clear. So let's take a look at how one would set up the local workspace and the Vault project file. Well, one, you would start to create your project file. You would choose or define a local workspace. You would map your folders. Okay. So basically mapping your folders means you're telling it exactly what local folder on your C drive or D drive or whatever it is, what mirrors onto what folder on the Vault. And lastly, you would check in your project or design so that it knows that, hey, this project file is now my Vault project file. So let's take a look at some basic naming structures. So you want to locate the project file in your Vault root folder. So pay careful attention to that $, because that's going to tell you your relative path for your libraries, as well as your workspace subfolders. Okay. If this is getting too confusing, not to worry. We're going to do a practical demo and see what it actually looks like. This is just an overview, so you can come back to it and watch it later on YouTube platform if you stuck at any point. Okay. So basic idea, you'll find that in your project workspace setting, you'll be able to change the workspace and your libraries. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide. This is what it should look like in full. Right? You'll find that when you're creating your Vault project file, you're going to say type Vault, right? You're going to specify all of your different locations for what you're working with. So as an example, in a company, if you're working with a shared materials library, let's say you have some custom materials, you can put them on a shared drive somewhere and say, this Vault project file refers to that shared drive, and we're all pulling our materials from there. When you check something in, that material goes into the Vault and stores it as a library content. Okay. It does the same thing with all libraries here. So custom libraries, and these include things like textures, iFeatures, iLogic rules, etc. Right? So let's take a look at a demonstration and see how it's going to actually work. I'm going to switch my monitors here. I'll just perhaps drag. I hope everyone can see my screen. So I'm currently in Inventor, and it's a brand new installation of Inventor. I have nothing on here, and we're just going to take a look at the best practices for how one should set up their Vault project. If I look at my Vault, again, brand new installation of Vault, I've just got my demo Vault, and all I see is my Project Explorer and my other tabs in there. Note, I'm using Vault Professional as an example, but it's going to be 90% the same if you're using Vault Basic, right? You just won't see certain tabs like duplicates or item master or any other thing in here. You'll probably just see Project Explorer and my search folder, but everything else will remain the same. Okay, so where do we begin? I did say we begin by looking at our projects. We go to the Get Started tab and we say, right, I want to create a new Vault project. And I'm going to call it demo, right? I'm going to define where I want my workspace to be. So remember in one of the slides, I said that we need to pick a place where our local workspace will be, and this will be mirrored onto the Vault. So I'll look here and I've created a folder called Vault Workspace. Currently it's blank. I want my little IPJ file to go in there and 3 custom folders. So let's take a look at how we're going to do it. I'm going to first make a folder called Content Center Files. I'm going to make another folder called Designs. And I'm going to make one more folder called Libraries. Okay, so this is how I want the structure to be. And all my designs are going to be stored in here. And all my content center files there and all my libraries there. So basically, I want this area to be my workspace. So I'm going to go to Vault and I'm going to tell, I'm going to go to Inventor and I'm going to tell Inventor, this is where I'm going to be working locally, right? And it's going to make an IPJ file called demo and it's going to place it in there. That's exactly what it's done. Notice that it is a Vault project because that's the type I chose. Whenever you make a new project, it asks you what type. So that's what I did. And it's also, you'll see here that this project is got no text next to it. That's important because once I check it into the Vault, it's going to say read only. And if I want to make any changes to it afterwards, I'll have to check it out, make my changes, and then check it back in. So right now it's editable, so I can define exactly what I want. So if I have some shared libraries or I have some different locations for my styles and whatever I need, I can change them now and go ahead. But if I don't, I will just leave them as standard and I can continue. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is to go to my Vault tab and log in if I am not logged in. So I'm just going to show you how that works. If I'm not logged in, I will just log in. Currently, I'm as the administrator. I will log into my demo Vault. And once I've logged in, I'll have this option here to map folders. And we did say that the purpose of this was to, oops, just gonna log out, log in. There we go. Right, we did say that the purpose of this was to define where the root folder is and where our content center file. Just 2 for now, right? It's only going to ask for a root folder and a content center. So you'll see when I try and map these folders, the root folder, it's going to ask me for a $ folder. And if you look on your Vault, it's basically that $. So where is the project root? Now, I cannot just say that the $ is my root. If I try and do that, it's going to give me an error. You need to have a subfolder in there. So I'm going to make a new folder, call it Designs, right? Okay. And so you can see where I'm getting at with this. I'm going to make another new folder. And this time I'm going to make a library folder called Content Center Files. Okay. So now I've defined $ designs and $ content center files. Okay. So this means that every time we check something in, it goes into $ designs on my Vault. Right? I don't have anything there yet because there's no project file loaded. So I've got to load my project file in first. So an easy way to do this is actually to just simply create any dummy part because the links are done. just to show you the links are done. So you just create any part and it will automatically check the part in for you. That's also a way of testing it for the first time. So I'm going to create a new part. And it could be anything. Okay. And we know that this is now working on my local workspace. I haven't saved it. The Vault doesn't know about it yet. But what I need to do is save it and check it in. Right, so I'll save it. I've got data standards on, so not to worry. But basically, I'm going to tell it where to save it. It's going to go into Vault Workspace. I can change the subfolder, or rather, let me do this. Let me go and go to my tools. I'm going to turn data standards off, just so that for the purposes of this webinar, nobody's confused. So I'm going to save it now. It's going to go into my local workspace, and I'm going to tell it designs. I'm going to save it part 1. Now, this is going to pose a problem, and you'll see what the problem is now. It's basically going to duplicate the designs folder, and I'll show you how that looks. Let's check it in. If I go check it in, it's going to go into designs, which is not exactly what we want. Okay. We can go look at the vault. If I go here and I refresh, you'll find that the 2 folders that we mapped to, which was the contents and the files and designs, are going to be checked in now. Right? If I go to my designs folder, I'll see part 1. And there we go. We have just successfully created a link between the vault and our local workspace. However, I did say the problem was that it created a duplicate file. So what can I do to mitigate that? Well, I can cheat a little bit. And me, I would like to do this. I would like to go into my, I'll take my project file and I would move it into the designs folder. Okay, right now I can't because it's being used. So I'm just going to change the project file. Let's see if it allows us to do that. There we go. So now this will be the root in inverted commas, and we should be able to work with that. So let's take a look at if that really works. I'm going to go back to my vault and try and delete some of these, right? So I'm going to delete this. Right. You'll see that the state has changed here. It says unknown status. Don't worry about that. Basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my projects and it's going to say it can't find that anymore. Okay, that's cool. We know about that. I'm going to browse for the newer location, which is Vault Workspace, Designs, Demos. And now we've loaded that. Okay. Now let's try that again. I'm just making any part in here. Right. I'm going to extrude. Now, I don't always need to save because if I just go directly to check-in, it's going to ask me to save anyway. So Vault is nice like that. It says, do you want to save it? Yes. You're going to ask it where to save it locally, and you'll see it going directly to your designs folder now, because that's where we place the IPJ file, and we'll call it part 2. Right. Now let's take a look. Aha! Now it goes directly to $designs, no duplicate folder. So that's just a little tip from us, is that if you want to avoid that annoying duplicate, we can just simply move the project file to where we want. Okay, so now you'll see it's checked in. I have the option to check out. Let's go to our vault and hit refresh there. Right, you'll see that project, here's your designs folder, here's your part 2, and we can continue as normal. Okay, once that's done, you probably want to do a couple of things. You probably want to, as administrator, I think we'll go back to our slides right now. We probably want to define a few things. right? We want to define how does Vault handle my library and contents of the file. So just a definition, what is library files? Library files are commonly used across multiple designs. Sorry, they are files that are commonly used across multiple designs, such as fasteners, electrical components, pneumatic components, etc. Right? So these include, if you look at the little note there, these include the content center files. Right? It says content center files are treated just like standard library files. Okay, so by default, Autodesk Inventor creates a library path for content center files, which is exactly what we just saw just now. Okay. There's some rules, and I know this is a wall of text, but when you're watching the video later on YouTube, you can always pause to see. Alternatively, you can just Google these rules from Autodesk knowledge page. But basically, library folders have to be on the root. Normal folders cannot be included under a library folder, and library folders cannot be included under a normal folder, right? And there's a whole bunch of other rules what you can and can't do with regards to dependencies and revisions. But basically what it's talking about is, and I'm going to minimize here to go back to my, it's basically saying that you can create your own library file like this, and it can only be created in the root folder here. So for example, libraries, that is a library folder. Whatever goes in here will be mirrored to your Inventor project, right? Your Inventor project, and whatever you specified as libraries for this project, right? When you were editing, will go into those folders, okay? And will be read-only, just as you would want it for any other library. Okay, I'm gonna go back to our PowerPoint. Project file configuration. So here are some tips of, or some examples of how you'd probably want to structure it. So you would map out your library files in your IPJ locally. And I did say that once it's checked into the vault, you need to check it out to make any changes to that project file, right? And you can see that how they structured their libraries for their standard components. So they have, like, for example, standard electric components, and this is an example of a workflow that you can use. You can also do it with presets and map these to maybe a shared drive where all of you are using shared presets. And every time you check something in, it's going to check it in along with. So let's take a look at how that looks, right? So I did say that in your design folder here, you can have subfolders for all your clients, right? And your library folder can be mapped out, right? I'm going to go back to my Inventor now, and I'm going to go maybe to this design as an example, or maybe I'll close this. We'll work with a new design from scratch, but just to show you that this current project that I'm working on, this Vault project, it is currently read-only. Why? Because it is now checked into the Vault. If I want to make any changes, I'll have to go to my Project Explorer, find that project file, say checkout, so that it's checked out to me. I'll have to get the latest version, of course. So let's just go here to my Vault. I will get the latest version. Put it down there. It says the local file has been modified. Do you want to replace it with the version? Yes. Okay, cool. There is some issue here. Let's see if we can figure it out. So we're going to look at our local file here, right? And we'll see that in our local workspace, we have designs and we have our two parts, okay? So I'm going to change the current project that I'm working on, right? I'm going to get. Okay, so now I've gotten it. So I've replaced whatever was locally done, right? However, it may not have come down to my local workspace. Why? Because I've not set exactly where this is supposed to be. So what I've got to do is I've got to go to my administration. Well, firstly, I've got to go to options. Sorry for jumping all over the place. That's it. Right. I've got to define where my local work folder is. I do apologize. All the windows are reverting to the next screen on my side. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define exactly where these things go. And you can see here in a previous example I had put in a IPJ something else. So let us go and say, I want my project file to be this new one here that's called demo. And I'm going to use the option to enforce consistent for all clients. So as an administrator, you want all your users to be using this current project file. Right? In the same way, we're going to look at enforcing the Vault workspace so that everyone looks in the same location for their files so that no one is confused about the structure. Okay. Now let us say get working folders. Okay. If I go to my working folder, you'll see that it goes to Vault Workspace Design, and it's now overrode that with the time here. So let's go back here, and we can say, right, sorry if I'm being a bit confusing. I just need to say check out now to indicate that it is now checked out. And if I work on this, you'll find that now the read-only is gone, which means I can make changes to this and I can define or redefine where I want my data styles to come from, where I want my templates to come from, and where I want maybe a shared content center files location to come from. So why would you want to do that is the question. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint. Best practices for folder structures in the Project Explorer. So as discussed, in your Project Explorer, you're going to find library files and your design data and custom library files, right? As well as stuff like templates and whatever have you. So you might have your drawing templates that possibly you don't want anyone to change. You just want to keep them as read-only, right? You can have this kind of structure, and it accounts for all various different types of data, both data standards, iLogic, PDMC workflows, etc. Right? Also, you'll find that it will check in materials and data. So in the stuff that I'm editing right now, my Vault project, I can go in and change exactly my own material libraries. Okay. So to keep the content under control, use template and life cycles to manage the states of this. So you can know when there was changes made to it. Okay. And lastly, you can add in a folder for your templates. So each time you check it in, it's going to go in there automatically. Right. These were the two options we just saw just now, and we saw what it does and why you should use it. Okay, so one is to enforce that all users have the same local workspace, and one is to ensure that all use the same IPJ file and not a customized version of that IPJ file. So let's take a look at what happens. Now that let's pretend I've made some changes in here. I've pointed to different locations for my material and style libraries, etc. Right? In order to save that, I've got to check this in. Okay, so now you'll see it's checked in. And I'm just going to go and perhaps I'm going to create a new design. And I want to just perhaps add some data in here. So this is a brand new part. It's going to be named as part 3. And I'm going to go into my assembly tab. I'm going to save this right as part 3. I'm going to check it in. Or rather, let's not check it in. Let's just leave it as so. I'm going to create a new assembly just to prove to you that the content center works. Okay, cool. Not to worry. We're going to place something in. Now, you'll notice that if I say just place, it's going to place from our local workspace. Bear in mind, part 3 is not in there at the moment. Part 3 is not in our design file because we haven't checked it in. So we're going to go and we say, okay, I'm going to place part 3. Okay, sorry. Then I'm going to place from Content Center. And again, it's going to pull out from wherever I fixed it to on my project file. So that was the purpose of this. So if I say I want to place some fasteners and we have some custom bolts, for example. Okay, cool. I'm just going to place a couple of them, right? Just so that they're in the old structure here. Now I'm going to save this assembly and check it in. It's going to go into designs as assembly one. And what's going to happen is it's going to know that these are contents in the files, regardless of where they're coming from. If they were mapped as a contents in the file or a library file, or perhaps a custom library file, they would all go into the right place accordingly. Okay. Now if I go back to my vault and I hit refresh, you'll find that my contents in the file starts to get populated with whatever we used from my content center. So what's the best practice here? The best practice, or maybe we shouldn't say best practice, but a practice is to have a shared drive that stores our content center files. So each of us can make our own published library files, maybe content center files or our own private library files. And we can map that into our project file so that it gets checked in accordingly as read-only data. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Right, now we're going to talk about manipulating the data on the vault. So what's great about Vault is that you can set to have your CAD data and non-CAD data treated differently. Right, so how do you do that? If you go to Tools Administration and go to Vault Settings, you'll find these two options immediately on the first tab. That one is Enforce Unique File Names. That means if you have a, let's say, design A and it has a part called shaft in it, and you have design B with a different part called shaft in it, right? You can have this option here on to say that, hold on, they must have different names. If they're different parts, they must have different names. You can't have shaft and shaft, but refer to two different things. That's what a lot of companies will do if you aren't enforcing any stock numbers or part numbers, right? Then the second option here is to disable check-in of design files. So this will, if this is on as it is now, it will prevent you from simply right-clicking and checking in a CAD data file, right? So it will tell you that if you're trying to check in an assembly, right, it will tell you that you must use the appropriate application, be it Inventor or AutoCAD or whatever it is. So the only thing you'll be able to check in like that will be actually nothing. You'll have to use the appropriate application, right? So what does it mean for us? It means that any of these things here will have to be checked in by the add-in in Inventor, right? That's the only way. However, if I want to have, for example, a new folder, a new standard folder called, let's say, documents, right? I can simply add in documents that I need. So I can go in and pull in a document. Let's say it's a PDF. It's going to go into my documents, and I can have it in a folder here. I don't need to use any appropriate application. So why would we want to do this? We can also make benefit of the attach tool where, let's say that there was a MSDS or a data sheet for a particular component. I can go into my assembly and say, hey, hold on, this one includes an attachment. It includes, let me attach from there, my documents. It includes this data sheet and so on and so forth. So you'll find that it has some important information. If I want to be able to see what of my files here has local attachments, I can go in and I say, right, I want to see the attachments field. Okay, so I'll see that this has an attachment. Let's see what uses it has. It has these two parts in it, which is the contents in the part and the part there, as well as that attachment which I've got in my vault. Right? So I can attach this data to multiple assemblies or designs and go from there. All right. Now you'll notice that immediately when I did that, I'll get the vault status modifier telling me that there's an incorrect version of the file, which basically means that what I have on my local workspace is out of date with what's been changed here. Something on the vault has been changed. Mainly, I made an electronic change. I've added an attachment to it. So I can simply say, if I just go back to my, let's just close this and this. I can simply say, get the latest revision, and that should sort out my issue there. So, right, moving data around on the vault. So just to go back to our the last point here, and we're rounding off this webinar now, moving data around in the vault. Like we said, moving data around can be done fairly easily. If you want to move to a new folder, I can always add a new folder inside of my right. I can move it without any issue. Right, it will sort it out for me, and you'll see client one will have now, and the link is still maintained. So if, for example, part number 3 was moved in there, the link will still be maintained to this. So if you go to uses, you'll find that it still finds where it is. If I want to make designs that are similar to this, we can always use the copy design, and we have a webinar on our Micrographics page on exactly how to use copy design. But basically, it allows you to reuse parts and copy some parts based on assembly. You'll notice that in this assembly, we only have a part and there's some contents in the file. So it will simply reuse the contents in the files and allow you to either copy or make a new or simply reuse the exact same part 3 that we have here. Okay. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'm going to take us to the last screen. So here's our contact information. If you'd like to know more about Vault as a solution, right? If you have any questions, you guys are welcome to ask now. I'll be online on this webinar. You can simply type it into the chat box, or you can put your mic on if you have a mic. And any specific issues or questions that you have regarding Vault, yeah, we'll see if our team can answer it immediately, or you can just take down our details and mail it down to me. If you want to get in touch with me directly, I think I'll just scroll all the way up to the very first slide where I have my email address. So if you want to email me directly, you can, that's my email address. But I'm also going to stay online if you have a chat request. I just want to see.
Hi there, Ashad.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. How you doing?
Yourself.
Just a question. Good. That duplicates dashboard.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the duplicates dashboard?
Okay, no problem. Well, that wasn't the purpose of this webinar, but I'll be happy to answer your question. So the duplicates dashboard is basically to find data that may be exactly the same as other data. So as a very basic example, if you have a bearing design, right, and it's a simple disc of maybe 50 millimeters, and it's got a hole of 20 millimeters, and you have somewhere in another design, you also needed a bearing, and you designed another bearing that's 50 millimeters by 20 millimeters, right? Duplicates dashboard will be able to analyze it and geometrically say, so not just file name will be the same, but also geometrically analyze and say, hey, you've got two parts that, from what I can see, the volume and the sizes are almost the same. Are they the same thing? Do you have two different part numbers for what is essentially a 50 mil bearing? It will basically allow you to scan and search for exactly that, duplicates. So it's a very useful tool, and it's fairly new. It's been added, I think, in 2021 as the first instance, but it will basically allow you to streamline your designs, and in conjunction with other Vault filters, it will allow you to find what's called, or what they call, orphaned files. So you might have designs in there that were used at one point, but now you've replaced them and they're no longer used. They're still taking up space on your vault, but if you want to find something that's no longer used and that's obsolete, you can say, hey, find all the parts that I think it's called has parent relationship is false. So what this will do is we'll find all the parts that are sitting on your vault that aren't being used in any assembly. And in conjunction with the duplicates, that can actually help you eliminate the design of unnecessary components and making the same one thing many times over. Right. Just to touch a little more on that duplicates, it basically gives you reports. So you can do like a little scan. And I haven't set it up. Like I said, this is a brand new installation of Vault. But basically, you can set it up to do a scan and a report, and it'll tell you, okay, I have 1,800 parts in here, and I have found 3 things or 12 things that are similar in geometry or similar in part number or similar in stock number or whatever it is, and it'll help you sort that out. Okay, mind you, sorry, one more thing about the duplicates while I'm on the topic is that it is only available in professional. So you won't find it in Vault Basic or any other software. Okay, any other questions? Okay, you're also welcome to type in your questions, but I'm going to stay online for a bit. Okay, guys, if there aren't any other questions, I would like to thank you again for joining us. I'm going to conclude this webinar, and if you ever want to, like I said, get in touch, my details were on the screen, or if you want to rewatch this video, you'll find it on YouTube at a later stage. Thank you so much. Goodbye for now.